Alrighty. Welcome to Romera Records virtual cast. Today we have on Sue Donnellan. How's it going?
It's going well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming on. So, looked up a little bit about what you've done with your book, and pretty interesting. I've always thought parenting was a very funny subject because it's something that most humans are able to do, and then it's like a profession at the same time. It's like, it's like an actual job that you got to know what to do and how to be good at it.
Well, none of us are really born knowing what to do. And then when we become parents ourselves, we end up bringing in any of the trauma or baggage or experiences that we had, with how we were raised. And we just do our best to build on that. And we kind of have to find ways to sort of self-reflect and find out ahead of time, how do we want to show up for this child instead of reacting and finding ourselves yelling. And so part of the reason why I wrote the book was because my journey was so I don't know, aggressive. I went from not really wanting kids and to marrying a guy who loves kids and wanted to have them. And I said, okay, I'll have a kid for you. How bad could it be? And then as he got to be about 3, I thought, oh, we should probably have another one because this is just, we're tripping over ourselves with this one kid. And I ended up with natural triplets. And I'm Italian, I'm type A, I'm like, do it because I said and like it. And I had no idea the psychology and layered nuances that were involved with parenting. So in the book, I take people, comically kind of through my learning process. So people that are reading it get to learn by default. I sort of pimp myself to go, here's how I learned, here's what I was doing. I was yelling all the time. And here's how I balanced raising 4 individual kids, going from 1 to 4 kids like immediately to, and also running my own businesses and supporting a husband who deployed overseas 5 times. So, I thought, well, I've got some things to offer some parents. And that's why I wrote the book.
So let's go back to when you decide that you actually want to have a kid now. Like what kind of mental thoughts were you having? Did it just accumulate over time?
Well, this is going to sound bad, but it was really like a business decision. I'm very practical and very logical. I'm very big picture. And, I use those traits to kind of run my businesses, and just a willingness to own that I married a guy who told me up front he wanted kids. I was sort of indifferent about it, never really having had experience with children. I just sort of got to be about 31 and thought, if I'm going to do it, I need to do it because big picture, again, I have 1, I have 2, I should do this. And it was just really a business decision of just looking at the clock and going, if I'm going to do it, I should do it. So it was just kind of a funny way of kind of coming to that decision. He didn't push me in any way or whatever. I just kind of, like I said, it was just, all right, it's time, very, regimented. And the funny part, and, especially when you read the book, it's like, we all think we have our plans. We all think we've got it under control. And doesn't life surprise us? Doesn't life have something else in mind for us that we think we've got it all figured out? And then, things happen beyond our control. Like in my case, surprise triplets without fertility, just, twins in the family. And so I think, looking back, of course, hindsight's 2020. Looking back, I realized this is what I was meant to do. And the leadership and the thought processes that I have, and those things this is where I was meant to be, to raise 4 individual self-fulfilled people out into the world who are marching to the beat of their own drum, finding their purpose. And, this is what I was meant to do. And so you have to laugh, can't lose your sense of humor with kids.
Absolutely. So after you had the first kid, do you feel like, hey, I'm super mom, or are you still,
No.
oh, I'm a rookie? Like, what's going
Oh,
on?
hell no. No, 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 no. He was, he's one of those kids that, is confident and is going to be successful, and is successful now. He's 23, and successful in life, but is difficult to parent. And sometimes those are the ones, you really cut your teeth on those kids, and you just, he's very confident. He was very, why, and there's got to be a reason. And, he sent my temper flaring to where I was yelling so much my throat hurt. And so I really had to deep dive. And one of the reasons why I wrote the book too is like the first half of the book is about your relationship with yourself. And that's what it takes. Then the second half is the relationship with your children. And you can't improve your relationship with your children if you don't sit and analyze and self-reflect your relationship with yourself and how you're showing up. And so in this book and in the way that I mentor parents and the way that we talk about just philosophies and methods and techniques, these things will help you. They spill over into the rest of your life. So they spill over into your relationship with your family and your friends and your partners. And so it's these types of methods are really about self-ownership, accountability, putting that mirror on yourself, self-reflecting that, and understanding that we've been taught that we have to change the child if we want the behavior to change. But in reality, that's antiquated thinking. What we really want to do is we need to look at ourselves and understand that the child is reacting to us. We're not reacting to them. And that if we tweak what we're doing and saying, even just the slightest bit, it becomes motivating for the child. It becomes not punitive, but, empowering. And it's all about how to empower and inspire and lead kids, because they are adults in training, and how to do that without the knee-jerk reactions that we all do, which is the yelling, the punishing, the timeouts, all these things. And you know what? They don't work. We all know they don't work, but we don't know what else to do. And that's where I was. And so I take the reader on that journey of discovering, as I discovered, what to do, how to do it. And the book is very much a playbook of what to do. And if you understand these methods, these big picture methods, it doesn't matter if I have a parent who's got kids between 3 and 5, or if I have a parent who've got teenagers. If you're willing to put that mirror on yourself and self-reflect and go, what can I do different to affect a different result? You'll be able to get that relationship in line with your child.
Did you feel like you had to do like a self-assessment at some point in either the first child or the triplets?
No, what happened was I got, and so again, in this book, I talk about ego, letting go of control, guilt is a wasted emotion. I've got all these attributes and these things that we can be aware of, that we can bring awareness to about ourselves and how we're behaving and how we're thinking and what our perspectives are. So no, my ego was locked and loaded. And, my husband, I had 4 kids under 4, and he left for combat, and we had just moved to Boise, and I had no friends or family. I was drowning, yelling, screaming. My oldest was in a Montessori preschool, and I just talked to the teacher, and she said, we offer a class. And I said, okay, whatever, please, I'm desperate. I went to the class, and, I had this whiff of smugness, I have 4 kids under 4. I run my own business. My husband's getting shot at, I have every reason to yell to my kids. And I really sat there thinking, she's going to tell me, you're doing a great job. Just here's a couple things. You got it. To my shock, she said, how's that working? 3 words. How's it working? Because I really thought I had it figured out, and it was my ego. So when she said that to me, splash of cold water on my face. Wow, you know what? It's not working. And that's why I'm here. And I can tell you all day long why I'm yelling at my kids and why I feel justified to do so with all this that I have on my plate, but it's not working. And so at that moment, I had to sit up and, fly straight and go, okay, wow, what will work? And that was kind of the first sort of pivot for me to go, all right, ego set aside, ego checked at the door. I have a lot to learn, because if we think that we've got certain skill sets, or we're running a business and we've got that figured out, life is a journey, life is learning. And, at some point we have our comeuppance. And like I said, looking back now, I realize this is what I was meant to do. And that was, we learn from our children. That's what we have to be open to do. And each child is different. So we have to show up differently for each one. And we really have to put ourselves kind of on the back burner. If we're leading out there and projecting out from what we think we know and what we think we see, then the child's behavior is going to show us that that's not reverberating for them. So yeah, I had a few epiphany moments that, because I was willing to listen and because I was willing to self-reflect and say, well, I guess I got to do some things differently. That was really the precursor to me changing and then me getting better results.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if if you aren't really paying attention to those types of things, you just kind of get lost in the moment. And with kids, I mean, I'm sure it's really easy because you're just trying to enjoy every day with them, and you're emotionally probably all over the place. So you probably get kind of lost in that.
You do. And I think that no matter what you read, what you do, what you talk about, no matter how much you have a niece or a nephew and you think you know what you're getting into, you don't. You just don't. And it's a 24-hour a day treadmill that does not stop running. And you have to learn how to balance within that. Sometimes the treadmill is going to be going really fast and you're barely keeping up. And then sometimes you're going to be able to slow it down, but it's always running. And so you just kind of have to, it's overwhelming. I was literally catnapping at red lights. I was exhausted, but you understand that, okay, I'm trying these methods and these aren't working, and I'm frustrated and stressed by their behavior. So what else can I do? What else should I do? And that was why I really felt compelled to write the book, because it took me all those years to figure it out and to put these methods together. And I felt like if I can save anybody from having to go through that themselves. And my kids are now, the triplets are 20 and my oldest is 23, and they've all found their purpose. They all, and that was parenting, that was leadership parenting. They've all found where they want to make a difference in the world, where their purpose is. And I feel like I've survived, I've succeeded, I'm happy. I feel fulfilled that they're all doing their own independent things and the things that are making them happy. And to me, that's successful parenting. So I know that the methods work because now I'm luckily, through the teenage years, which that was interesting. So yeah, I feel like I can add some value to someone's life if they're feeling really stressed.
Did you end up coming up with I guess like a game plan, or like how you, or priorities of like what you wanted to do in your kid's life, or did you just, kind of create it as you went?
I created it as I went because I was reacting, again, once my ego was set aside and I realized, okay, I've got a lot to learn here and I need to receive as much as I give. And I needed to kind of get my space, my head space there. So I developed it as I went. Because I had to react to those phases and to those moments that were coming up. But there was no way I could have predicted what was to come. Every day with children, you're making decisions you've never had to make before. You're seeing experiences and things you've never expected to see. You're hearing things that you have to correct and train. And each day you can't possibly predict what's to come in each phase. So you just sort of have to adapt. But yes, I've come up with, what I like to say is the mindset for parenting on purpose. And parenting on purpose is really just very deliberate, very, parenting in advance, reverse engineering the way we parent, looking for patterns, looking to interrupt patterns. It's very much getting in front of it and not allowing ourselves to get into the situation where we're reacting. And if you can sort of adopt that mindset, that is the foundation for how to handle all these unexpected moments that come up. Because like I said, you can't predict them. You don't know where it's going to be the next day. And you just have to be able to be a good leader and a good role model and respond. You have to have your values up front, your morals up front. You have to know what you stand for. I have a chapter called the chapter, what know what you stand for, are you for sale? Because that was one of the things that I saw with my kids' friends' parents, was that they were for sale for everything. They were constantly vacillating. They would make a rule, they were inconsistent, they didn't stand for anything. And kids really need leadership.
Hmm.
So there was a lot of I guess crossover between how I ran my businesses and how I parented. And that leadership, you've just got to be consistent. You've got to know what you stand for. You've got to set your goals, communicate them, train them, and have that expectation. It's just streamlining that process so we're not always reacting.
And I don't know if you had this in your book, but something you were talking about with the leadership thing, that's something I've always hated. So I don't have kids, me and my wife, but
Mhm.
something I've always hated when I see, I believe it's younger parents do this more than older parents, but they count and be like one, two, like I hate that because
Yeah.
that's telling your child that they can hold off and they don't have to listen to you up to a certain point. And if you ever get to three and nothing happens, that child now has that in his head. Oh, nothing happens if I just don't do what they say.
Well, guess what that does? That gives the child the power.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I teach parents how to sidestep the power struggles. So when you're parenting in advance and you're parenting on purpose, you know the things that you say and do that are going to lead to that child potentially telling you, no, I'm not going to do it. Screw you. I'm not going to, when you're parenting in advance, you know how to rephrase and how to set the stage for accountability. And I teach parents that. And again, it's foundational mindset thinking that carries over into other relationships, but it's just a really great way of getting in front of it, getting in front of the behavior and having the child take accountability for the things that he says and does. Because with kids, it's about phases and it's about patterns. And when a child's behaved in a way twice, that's a pattern. So they're jumping on the couch. You're like, hey, get down, get off. Next day they're jumping on the couch. Pattern. I see the pattern. Now I say, okay, I'm going to interrupt the pattern. And then you parent in advance by saying in the morning at breakfast, if we choose to, and I love the word we, I have very, very specific language that I really like. The word we is a winner always, and I joke in the book about how I used it with my husband to get him to vacuum. When are we vacuuming this weekend? And you know what? It took him years to figure me out. It really did. I'm not, and he's a fighter pilot. So like, he's not dumb. He was like, realizing I was leading him around with breadcrumbs there. Finally he got a clue when I started using it on the kids. But what are we going to do if you choose to jump on the couch? So notice my words, we and choose. And then the child, depending on their age, this is how you get them to take accountability in advance for their actions. They'll look at you like, I don't know. So you lead them, well, let's come up with a consequence. It's not a punishment, it's a consequence. Because in life, our job as parents is to create and mirror society of consequences. Because if you don't show up for your job, you get fired. But we're constantly, picking these kids up when they fall, solving their problems. I saw it every day. And my kids had to solve their own problems. And so you ask the child, what are we going to do if you choose to do X? They have to come up with well, I guess I, need to, you come up with whatever. It has to be kind of related, depending on their age. They're going to vacuum the couch because they got it dirty. Are they going to, what are they going to do? They're going to come up with that. You're both going to agree on the consequence if he chooses that behavior. Then later in the day, you're going to get tested. This is where you have to be consistent. He jumps on the couch. Now, instead of yelling and reacting, you've parented in advance. Now, all you have to do is say, what did we discuss? What did we agree to if you jumped on the couch? So now he's getting buy-in. He's agreeing to his behavior and his consequence. No, you know what I mean? It's like, it's brilliant,
Yeah.
just strategy. Then he has to have the consequence. And it's like your job to be the leader and to set the tone, create that dialogue and that training and that accountability, and then hold him to it. And when you start using this mindset and pattern, it's repeatable in a variety of ways that works. And it works if you're a boss with employees, and it works in relationships, and it works across the board. And it's about personal accountability. And that's what I was trying to teach my kids. So I am not, yelling at you. I'm not punishing you. I'm none of this 1, 2, 3, stop jumping, because that gives the child the power. And we all do those things until we learn another way. So I'm not criticizing any parent. They just don't know. And that's why I really wanted to write the book, and I mentor as many parents as I can. I try to teach this method because it just creates accountability for the children, and they need that. And I can tell you, I used this method on my 5-year-old when he was trying to get into the playpen with the triplets. And every time he went in there, he made someone cry because it was attention for him. And this method was just me walking over, and instead of yelling, you always make the kids cry, you. Now I just got to walk over and say, what did we agree to if you made the kids cry? I have to get out. Okay. Now, to add one more thing, that act like the extra little icing on the cake is the reason I don't like the 1, 2, 3, and the reason I don't like timeouts is because A, they don't work, but B, because you're the one telling them when they can come back. So it's a punishment, and punishment doesn't work. So in my case, I would tell my son, okay, you agreed that you would get out, go sit out until you decide that you can play with them without making someone cry. More responsibility and ownership. So, I don't need to tell you that you have to sit out for 5 minutes for you to decide. I'm going to tell you to decide when you're ready. 10 seconds later, he comes back. He's 5. Mommy, I'm ready. I took him at his word. I trusted him. Okay, buddy. Well, you just remember what happens if somebody cries. That, from somebody. Okay. I mean, I didn't have to do that, but once, twice, 5-year-old taking accountability, being responsible for his actions and ownership, and me not yelling. Right. So it works.
That's really good stuff.
It works.
I've never thought about that. And I do think like what you were talking about with just like running a business and the way employees can act. You were calling that like a punishment. You go to work, you do something wrong, or you don't show up for work, you get fired. Like the things you were talking about with the way you allowed your kid to actually understand, like that's another way they can understand like what's going on. Like it's not just mom's upset, so she's getting on to me. It's like, oh, I did this to myself. I knew.
Yeah. It's creating the structure in your home, and you're able to do that when someone shows you how to do it and they help you through it. If you're feeling really, really overwhelmed, which most parents are, I mean, the pandemic and all the stuff going on that parents are responsible for, it is super, super stressful these days. If you're in this frantic mindset and the kid's behavior is just really bugging you, and I'm working with you day to day, we work on one thing, and we get this method down on one thing, and then we start whittling it away to all the other behavior. And eventually, after you get through the kids' testing and they see that you're consistent and you've got, your methods down and it's working. Yes, the kids at any age can understand that they're responsible for their behavior. And as parents, we're attaching our adult experiences to everything that is child related, and children are so simple, and we overparent, which is why I titled my book The Secrets to Parenting Without Giving an F, right? Because it's counterintuitive methods that work. We have to learn how to disengage. We have to learn how to let go of control, because that is respect to my child. I respect and I trust you to make your own choices, and then to self-correct if that wasn't a good choice. And I'm here as a safety net if you need it. But the more opportunities I get my kids to do in the home while they're under my roof, from 5 to 18, the more opportunities I give them to choose and to make decisions and to solve problems, the easier my life is. I mean, another one of the epiphanies that I had was I thought I was so needed. I might not have had these epiphanies if I only had 2 kids, because as parents, we put this pressure on ourselves that we have to be solving everything. We're bad parents if we don't. This is what we think. Mm-hmm. And there's all this pressure to be involved and to be that parent, but we're really doing a gigantic disservice to our child when we're behaving that way. because we're solving everything and we're laying everything out. I talk in the book, the helicopter parent is so yesterday. It's the morphine parent. Like, how do I take all my kids' pain away? That's so disrespectful to the child, because it's saying, I don't believe in you. I don't trust you. I don't think you can handle it. I never passed up an opportunity to tell my kids, I trust you. Even if in that moment, I didn't fully feel like I could trust them, they live up to that. And I have a chapter in the second half called programming your child. And geez, does that work? Like, whew, like I have a lot of like hacks, and again, since my kids are older, like I can tell you all these little things that work, and they all add up to building and instilling confidence and to getting kids to. I have another chapter about how to help kids make good decisions, good decision making, and how to get your kids to tell you everything. Lots of little hacks that, as children get older and as my kids became teenagers, I saw parents just clamping down on the control as they got older, when you're really supposed to be, freedom within boundaries. I set the boundary and have very few hard and fast rules, but those I don't deviate from. And I train and program my kids that I am not deviating, but you have a lot of freedom within that because I trust you. It works. People don't need to be micromanaged. They don't need to be, told what to do. They don't like that. And so I didn't want to raise my kids with that, because I didn't want to be so needed with 4 kids. They were packing their own lunches at 5 and they were doing laundry at 6.
Wow.
And I mean, they loved to do that. They loved being able to make a difference and contribute. And I didn't have time running a business and a household of 6 and shopping and making dinners, fold up, look, whose shirt is this? I had 3, 2 boys that were twins, like identical twins. I don't know whose shirt. I don't care. Here's your pop-up hamper, do your laundry. Here's how you do it. And parents just don't realize that how capable kids are. We tend to really think that they're not capable of doing much, but they're super capable.
Did you run into issues with your kids being around? I guess this wouldn't happen until they were probably like 15 or 16 or just getting into high school sports. But just the way your kids were brought up compared to the other kids, and like seeing any changes or deviations in their actions or anything like that.
Yes, they were wise beyond their years, and they were really proud of that. They had a lot of capability of seeing the big picture and then being able to look at a situation and go, if this, then that. Whereas teenagers can be sort of impulsive. And I'm not, believe me, I had our issue. Each kid had their funny story of bad mistakes that they made and things that happened that I had to parent. These days, you've got porn, you've got drugs, you've got drinking, you've got, we're a microcosm of what society is, and our kids aren't perfect. And, and I welcome that. I welcome those opportunities to parent and to help them make choices through those decisions. And that's fine. But yes, we definitely saw that, where the kids were able to be a little bit more decisive. They were able to make more informed decisions. They were leaders among their group, and they weren't falling prey to the groupthink. And that was really what our intention was to make sure that these kids were independent and that they were self policing, that they weren't going to follow the crowd, that they could stand back and say, no, that doesn't work for me. Or yeah, the kid, they know that by the time they got to college, they saw all the kids that were really, really micromanaged and controlled and punished were coming out of the gates, right? Doing all this stuff that my kids were like, poor kid, he didn't have a chance to figure this out yet. So we did see, that was something, in fact, they became like captains on their sports teams or whatever. They were definitely able to make some decisions, and they weren't quite so eager to rebel, because restriction creates rebellion. And when you're restricting, you're really just inviting your kids to rebel and to lie to you. I have another thing that I say is that if you want to be lied to, ask a direct question. Where are you going? Who are you with? And that chapter about how to get your kids to tell you everything, I really teach people how to ask questions so that you're getting information, but you're not asking a direct question. You can ask, they say Howard Stern is like a great interviewer. Like, he's good at, I listen to him, I hear, and that's kind of how I did it with the kids, where you're just asking, and, a lot of we words, and, oh, who all was there? Certain techniques that you can get teenagers to not feel so, suspicious. They're suspicious of everything.
Absolutely. And I do think that, when kids, when they get into situations like what you were talking about, just understanding like what other people have are trying to decide to go through, people, if like your kids know the right from wrong, and then they see somebody else not realizing it, like that's why I was laughing, because I was like, that's hilarious, like thinking about somebody so young really understanding like what's going on, and they're just so far ahead of their peers.
And
And
I don't even mean to make it sound like, listen, we had our moments, my gosh, we really, really did. But as a testament to some of these principles that I'm teaching, which is letting kids make mistakes, letting kids learn, having consequences that they have buy into, structuring their time being raised with an environment like that, where there's accountability, really does teach them to own whatever it is they're doing. And if they make a mistake, they step up and go, yeah, I do have a story where my 5-year-old, when my husband was at war, he was stealing all these kids. All the Montessori school has these really fun little teaching things, like just fun little puzzles and fun stuff. And he was taking those things, and he was taking things out of people's cubbies. So he was 5, and he was actually even helping the teacher look for them while they were in his pocket. Okay. So it's funny. I mean, yeah. So I've got story after story of where my kids, this is not me going, I have all the answers. My kids are perfect. Hell no. But it's how you handle it. So my husband was gone. He was told, your dad's going to die. He's at war. He has these 3 triplets that are taking all my time and attention. So as a parent, now you step back big picture and go, okay, what's really going on? It's not about the behavior and the punishment, and you stole, but I was big about accountability even at that age. And so I did say, when I found the items in his room, we hit it head on. And I said, tomorrow you're going to put it in a baggie, and you're going to show up, and you're going to stand up in front of the class. You're going to apologize, and you're going to return everything to the children. Done. Well, okay, mom, on the way to school, of course, I don't want to go to school. I mean, I was expecting all this hesitation. I don't want to. And I just said, Matt, this is what a good man does. Or even if it was my daughter, this is what a good woman does. This is what a good person does. I said, you made a mistake, and you're going to apologize, and you're going to fix it. You're going to do this head on. And he's 5, and he did it. And of course, I did have the teacher make sure there was, not a hospitable environment so that it went well. And kids at 5, they hug you. If you apologize to any child, instant. And it's so heartwarming how kids are, that if you make a mistake or you're tired and they know it's not about them, and you say, I'm so sorry, mommy's tired, or guys, I'm so sorry, I took your things. They don't care what's going on at home, that his dad's at war and he has these triplets and all this. I mean, they don't care. And as a parent, I had to deal with that problem in the most, I guess the big picture way, that he was going to be able to remember that we don't steal, we don't lie, how do we do this? We step up and we take responsibility. And this kid has never stolen another thing. And, he's an honorable guy. He's now in the military going to pilot training himself. It's just, this is the type of stuff that you can instill in kids through how you respond to certain situations. Because every child is going to test the limits. Every child is going to make mistakes and see what life has to offer. So it's coming. It's just a question of, do you punish to control that, or do you teach and train? And that's what I teach, is the teaching and training part.
I do think that like an older way of teaching, which it's usually people who are much older than me, but they always talked about how they were terrified of their parents, terrified to do anything because their parents were going to beat them or whatever. So it's funny how I think as time goes on and we as humans learn more about parenting, number one, but they say the younger generation, they get very soft parenting, and people don't do anything. But I feel like your way of parenting is kind of like in the middle. It's hard on them, but it's not like fear. It's more just them. It's more disappointment than fear. Like I always say, it's terrible to disappoint somebody over than just being afraid of somebody, because if you disappoint them, it's like, as you said, like you feel like you hurt both of you. you hurt your relationship between your parent or the other person. But if you're just afraid of them, then it's like, oh, that person's going to be mad at me anyways. I don't care. So
Right.
it builds a type of
It builds
emotion.
that intrinsic, wanting to do the right thing, and that builds that real. I'm all about relationship building. And I have one word that defines what you're saying. And I worked really hard to come up with this word, and I have a chapter on it. It's called partnership parenting.
Mm.
Because parents will tell you, oh, I'm not their friend. I am not your friend, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, I am. My kids were adults in training to eventually become my best friends, which they are now. And they have been for a long time. Now, it was very clear to my kids that I was not their best friend when they were growing up, because I was a leader to them. I was a role model to them, and I'm not for sale. And I'm not gonna, you can't come and negotiate with me. And it was funny because my kids' friends would come in, and because they could negotiate with their moms, they like, bro, watch this. And my son's like, it's not going to work, and his friend would try to get me to get their curfew, later. I'm like, okay, thank you for negotiating. It's now earlier. Now he needs to be home at 11:30 when it was 12. Done. Stop, but so they need leadership, and they need that freedom within the boundaries, but they need a partner. And the partner is, I'm not your friend yet. In the back of my mind, I know I'm growing my best friends. I'm training my best friend, but I'm your partner. I'm in step with you. I'm not behind you pushing. I'm not in front of you, leading your way with all the soft landings, every step you take. I'm by your side, and I'm here when you need me. But I'm going to watch what you do. Like, how do we treat a partner in business? Like, how do we treat a partner in our lives, with respect and trust? And when you tell your kids the words, I trust you, even if you don't mean it at that moment, you're programming them, and they will not want to let you down. I never had to ground or punish my kids. And I'm telling you, I went through it all. With 4 kids, I got a smorgasbord of shit that they went through. I've lived it. I know it. I can talk about all of it. So my methods aren't preventing the kids from experiencing life. I'm not saying that my methods are, you're going to raise perfect kids that don't ever get in trouble. In fact, I welcome some of these moments of trouble, because now we're going through it together, because you're human and you're a person in your own soul, and you've got your own journey. And I really felt strongly about encouraging their own personal journey. They're not me, they're them. And with parents, we tend to, if we're controlling, we're feeling like they're, a part of us, and we have this ownership, and we don't, and we shouldn't. So these methods will help you through this, and they will also help you parent them better in the teenagers, because you'll have that relationship of trust, and they will come to you and they will tell you what's going on, so you can keep parenting them. Otherwise, they're going to be thinking, your kids are the perfect angels, and they're, ding dong ditching, and they're, throwing eggs in people's houses, and they're, stealing or doing drugs or whatever the hell else they're doing, sneaking out in the middle of the night, which, there's always something that they're going to do. But when you're a parent that says you trust your kids, they're still going to do some stuff, but much less. And they're going to feel bad about it. And if you find out, now we have things we can talk about. So now my boundaries have become a little smaller. And until you've proven to me that you can handle these boundaries, I'm not expanding them again. And, so I give you these tools with which you can, in my case, it was curfew. I was a real stickler about curfew, and I always made it 30 minutes before their friends. And I didn't really ask much of them. I didn't have a lot of rules, but that was my rule. And so if you busted curfew, which really didn't happen often, but if you did, you got busted back to 9, and then you had to earn it. So I don't have to punish. I don't have to take keys. I don't have to take the car. I don't have to do all these things that then end up, causing me work. Right. So it's a different way of looking at it, but it's partnership parenting.
Did you end up taking any tactics from like uh, other countries or other like ways of teaching or anything like that? Like
What was the first, did I take on, what was the first part?
any kind of tactics or your teachings? Did you get those from like any country or any specific teaching? I was going to make a reference to how like I think it's in the UK or in just actually probably a lot of other countries, the drinking age is much younger, and they say that teenagers end up not being as I guess alcoholics or doing
Mhm.
making bad decisions with alcohol because it's been in the household for so long and then they become responsible. Do you feel like there's any kind of like different way of teaching, I guess, compared to normal, whatever normal is, normal parenting?
I didn't necessarily look to other countries for that. Now, it just so happens that my husband's dad was in the military and he went to high school in Belgium. So he was able to go have beer after his football game and be legal about it. And, so he has that experience. And that informs, the way that we raise the kids. I'm Italian, my family has wine at dinner. It's not a big deal. I think that overall, the mentality is to just, and I say this in the chapter about getting your kids to tell you everything. You want to brand yourself as unshockable. So you're not reacting. All right. So if I'm making a big deal about booze or I'm making a big deal about anything, oh, that is so enticing. You may as well just put that on a silver platter to your kid, if so, I personally don't even drink. Except one time a year I drink. And this is actually a funny story. I have a little Bailey's when we trim the tree for Christmas.
Hmm.
Just a little bit of Bailey's. I'm not a big drinker. When my daughter became 10, she found out there was booze in my cup when I trimmed the tree. And she said, there goes my role model for not drinking. Oh, okay. So this is actually a good example. Okay. So she's 10. Well, I mean, initially I was pissed, like, fuck you, like, really?
Yeah.
But here's what that told me is that attention. So kids are black and white in the beginning, like very delineated, good, bad only. Then as they get older and their blinders sort of open, they start to visualize, the gray. Oh, well, there's this, there's that, there's nuance to life. So at 10, when she said that, I realized, okay, it's time to have a nuanced conversation that is drinking isn't bad. It's in moderation. I'm an adult. I'm making my own choices. Like, this is, whoa, back up on this. But instead of getting mad at her, which, initially I was like, oh, no, I don't think we're doing that, initially I felt that way. And then in that moment, I said, no, this is a teaching moment. She's starting to go gray on me. She's no longer that little girl who's like, teenagers are bad and, adults are safe and good. And all these, they have all these things that are just one way or the other. So that gave me an opportunity to have a conversation with her. So I guess just getting back to your question is that, it's important to be able to see, how other countries do it. How are they making decisions over there? How does that affect us? But the bottom line is that I'm only in charge of me and my environment in my home and what conversations that I have. So in our case, 4 teenagers all at the same time, all faced with so much stuff in their face. We did personally choose to partner with them on drinking. That was not us permitting it. It was not us buying it. It was us going, we know that you may have an occasion, you may procure something from a friend. We see this, we understand that. And by partnering with them on that and just having that open conversation, not approving it, not giving it to them, because that is a mixed message. By understanding that when they go to a party, I know there's alcohol there and I know you might have a sip, right? Just understanding that and partnering was allowed us to have the conversations about drinking and driving. If we didn't partner with them on that, then I would never have an open door to say, I know what's at the parties. I know what you're faced with. And then just admitting, we know all the things you're faced with. And I know it's hard to make decisions when you're at a party and everybody's pushing you. I understand. Like, you have to partner. You can't say, well, I don't expect you to go to a party and be like, this girl's hitting on you and you're not going to make out with her. You're not going to, I get it. Like, you're teens, there's so much in their face. And if you are a parent who thinks that that's not happening, then, you got your head in the sand and your relationship is getting tarnished with your child. They're not telling you everything. So that's your choice. Like, if it's like, it's not happening, it's not happening. Okay, well, then that's, you know what I mean? Now you're not having that connected relationship with your child where you're diminishing your ability to parent and help them solve those problems. And so by partnering and opening up and going, I know what's going on at those parties. I know that you're tempted. I'm not telling you that I'm going to buy you booze. I'm not that parent. We're not doing that. But now it gives me the chance to say, if you choose that, or if you have some, call me. You know, in my case with the triplets, there's always somebody that wasn't drinking, that get a safe ride home. I could have those conversations and open that door to discussion. And that's what, you know, in the teenagers is all about. So I don't say that I got much influence from what the other countries did, but I think for me, it's just having my eyes wide open as to what teens are faced with and empathizing with them that, you know, it's really hard to navigate your way through this. It's really hard to navigate your way through the fact that you have a phone for your safety so that when you're walking home or you need to call mom or whatever, but that with the touch of a button, you're seeing porn and you're seeing these things. And I mean, we did our best to block what we could, but parenting is, again, it's nuanced and it's difficult and you've got to be able to have the hard conversations.
I think that's a big deal with parents, and I even saw it when I was growing up in high school. I would see like uh, kids who there was like a girl who had a really strict mom, and she, you know, for the most part, was actually a really good girl. Like she never really got in trouble or anything like that. But it's like everything that her mom was trying to protect her from ended up happening, and it's like,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
if you, we always said if she wasn't so strict on her, then she probably wouldn't have ended up doing the things that, you know, didn't want her to do in the first place, because she would have
Well,
had like
you have to have a conversation with the child because if I'm not talking about it, like, you know, with my daughter and the conversations, this is what I say about parenting in advance, which is what I love. It's about that preparedness. You never know when that conversation is going to hit, that you're going to talk about sex in you know, whether it's going to be a soundbite moment or like a long drawn out. If I've branded myself as unshockable from when they're 7 and they ask me, mommy, where do babies come from? And I'm like, boom, here's how it is. Like, I'm a fan of humor. I swear like a sailor. My kids know me in that way. So I'm open and I talk about anything. But by the time they get to be teenagers, if you're not already creating and cultivating that openness with them, they're not they're not going to talk to you because it's like, ew, mom, you know, I'm so embarrassed. She can't handle it. Um, you know, and so when you have those conversations with them, they, if not you, then who? It's your responsibility. And, you know, driving home from a volleyball game at, you know, 12, 13 years old, I never knew this was coming, but, you know, it came up and I'm driving and out of my mouth said, you only have one to give. Are you going to waste it on a high school boyfriend? You know, I don't know how old she was, but like, I was like, oh, hey, that's pretty good. That worked. That really worked. You got one, you're gonna waste it on some chump from high school, you know, like you got your whole life, like big picture. You got guys you're gonna meet in college, you got guys you're gonna meet, like, you know, and what that tells her is you're in charge. It's your body, your ownership. I'm not saying you need to wait for marriage. I'm not giving you any restrictions. I'm just saying you're in charge. And you know, that's really, I mean, it really worked. And some of these girls that don't have moms that are talking to them end up, you know, wanting to lose their virginity because they're leaving high school. They have all these false reasons for doing things because they just don't understand the self-confidence aspect of it and the self-empowerment part of you're in control and it's up to you and you choose and you can say no. And it's actually your job to say no. You know, I've got 3 sons and a daughter. Yeah, you got to have some different conversations, you know, no means no over here. And your job is to say no, because they're going to test you. Like this is right. I mean, we
yeah.
have the same conversations. They all hear it at the dinner table, but it's empowering our daughters and our sons. But just having those conversations is super, super important. And like I always felt, and just I just said, is like if it's not you as mom and dad, then who? It's our job.
And I think the quickest way you can get a kid to grow up is to just give them that accountability, responsibility. Those things will quickly get them to mature faster than other people. It's not just, you know, telling them what to do and what not to do, and go here, don't go there, and stuff like that. You think what you're doing is you're just building that bubble for them to stay in, and then they'll be fine after that. But it's, it's not. It works. Sometimes they have to get out the bubble to understand what the bubble was for, and then they can just
Right.
continue to grow after that.
They're adults in training. And I tend to lean a little bit more toward the spiritual side with, intuitiveness and so forth. And I did raise the kids with that in terms of just honoring them as their own soul. And we tend to take ownership over children in an odd way. And why? They're not ours. We gave birth to them, right? They are of us, but they are not our property. And it's disrespectful. We don't treat anybody else in our life like that. So if we come at it with teaching and training in mind, you know, and then maybe we're not controlling, right? Is a difference between teaching and training and controlling and restricting. Because like I said, restriction creates rebellion. So if you want a rebellious kid on your hands, then control them. And it's just human nature. So
Yeah, I mean, people are so prone to just rebelling and doing what they aren't supposed to do, especially
mhm.
kids. Like you tell a kid, don't do something. It's the first thing they want to do. It's like, oh,
Oh,
what happens if I do it?
yeah.
And-
And if you box yourself into the corner, like we said in the very beginning, is that they have all the power. And so I never set the stage with my conversations or my demands to where my child had the power. I sidestepped that power struggle through the various methods that I teach and that I train parents with. Is that it's like it's reverse engineering, it's parenting in advance. It's kind of breaking down that parenting process to you know to get a different result. So
I
it's
had,
like parenting 2 to 20 and it works.
I had somebody on my podcast, and they said something that I really enjoyed. It was my parents did the best they could with the knowledge they had.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that I thought about earlier from something you said, because it's a lot of times you expect that parents, it's like, hey, you're my parent, you're supposed to know everything, like you're supposed to be all knowing, all wisdom, everything. But sometimes it's just not the case. Not even sometimes, it's never the case. So with all the knowledge that you've developed, and you've been able to just accumulate this learning about parenting, and you've got a book, and you're teaching other people, do you feel like you're learning how much people don't know as parenting, or is it seems like it's as expected?
I think that we are just repeating generation after generation. Like I think my wish, my fantasy is that I could get these methods out to everybody that I possibly could, because we all just don't know better. And I take you back to that whole arrogant egomaniac that was in her parenting class thinking she had it figured out. She was just yelling, and me learning, ooh, okay, no, it's not working, and I own that. Um, and so I think that it's just parents thinking they're doing the best thing. And when parents are controlling, they are coming at it from a point of thinking they're doing the best thing, but that fear doesn't need to be there. So when you have other techniques at your disposal and you have other methods that you can use, and you understand the psychology behind why we use those for the betterment of the child, and for that leadership, and for them to have those experiences and wisdom beyond their years, then you are able to affect different change. And so I really, um, I think we're just all doing the best that we can. And I was doing the best I could when I was yelling at my child. And, for an adult to come onto your podcast and say that they understand that their parent was doing the best they could, forgiveness is an incredibly powerful emotion. And we teach our kids that too. When my kids were bullied, or my daughter was bullied, and I always taught her, what, when that person comes back to you and apologizes, you forgive and we move on and you welcome them back. Some kids, some girls didn't apologize, we're done. But those that did, we welcome them back. And now sometimes those are the best friends that you have going forward, because they took ownership and they realized what they did was wrong. But in our case with parenting, if our parents did certain things, it's important for us to look at that and with a heart of forgiveness and say they did do the best they could, because I'd like to believe that if they knew other ways, they would have used them. They just wanted to keep me safe. So I think that's important.
Uh, when I think about forgiveness, a lot of times I think about Justin Bieber, and I'll tell you why. Because
Okay.
when Justin was like, I think he was like 13 or 12 or however young he was, like when his music career first started, he was so like a 12 or 13-year-old that half of America knows who you are from singing, and he's a good looking kid,
Mhm.
that's trouble, so much trouble. And we saw how he ended up turning out when he was, I think, probably around like 19 or 18. He was just doing things that he got ridiculed for because he was doing very immature and dumb things that a young person's probably going to do, but
And publicly, so that's
publicly. And as he's gotten older, like he just came out with a documentary. I don't remember the name of it, but I think you can see it on like Netflix or something. But you can just see how much he's matured. Like, yes, he's much older, of course, but like sometimes people don't grow out of that. Like sometimes that's just who a person is. They're going to be immature the rest of their life and do dumb stuff. But you can see how much he has changed and how he had to grow up. And then he talks about his relationship with his parents like wasn't the best. And like when you hear that, you're like, oh, that's why.
it makes sense because kids are being shuttled back from home to home and they're being lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
It's very hard. It's very hard to be parenting to parent under even the best circumstances with, both me and my husband present and involved. I've got many friends and many parents that I work with that are divorced or that are just trying to do the best they can for their child. And the child is, many times their needs aren't being met emotionally. It takes an extra effort and an extra awareness to know how to meet those needs. And it's not that it can't be done. It's just that we need to know what we can do and how do we shine light on that awareness to what we can do. And in Justin Bieber's case, I don't know, I'm not intimately familiar, but it seems from what I've read that his manager stepped in and provided that father figure and that accountability and was able to kind of reach him, and he didn't give up on him. And, it would be an interesting thing to kind of interview him and find out, what methods did you use? Because he's got those young artists and he stuck with that kid. Even when people said leave, from what I've read, that guy, he stood by him and supported him and trusted him and was there for him. And that is I don't know if it's, if there was that influence, but I kind of tend to believe that, they were going through that experience together, that public persona and, being under that microscope together. And this guy provided that stability for him. I think that says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at Justin as a ticking time bomb. Like, you don't
Mhm.
know when he's going to do the next stupid thing. And it
Yeah.
could damage your own, if you're his manager, it could damage your name, his name, and everybody associated with him. So to be able to, not control, but to be able to manage and partner with him, the words you use, to understand what he's going through. As I said, he didn't have the best relationship with his parents, so that could have affected him when he's 13, 14 years old. And it just, it just builds up over time with all the money and fame that the kid's getting. Like, the everyday parent thinks they have a hard time. Imagine if your child is making quadruple the money you make.
He's 13. I mean, no, that's harder to navigate than I think any of us could ever imagine. Any of these young stars that are going through all of this stuff publicly, and now with everybody having a camera and a video, and it's super difficult. And it's funny because if you read an interview about an actress or an actor that hasn't gone off the rails, what do they always say? They go, "I've got a family that keeps me grounded." You read an interview with them, and they're like, "Yeah, I've got friends and family that keep me in my place." And so family is everything. Parenting is a big job. And that's why I really just want to share any parent who is looking to the big picture, to get their kid to find their purpose and to have goals in their life and to be inspired and empowered rather than controlled and punished. I welcome. I hope that they read my book and they can get on my calendar and get 20 minutes of free advice. Or they can get mentoring, because I'm passionate about this and I help a lot of parents, and I love doing it. So,
What is something from your book that you felt like you really wanted to get the point across, like your favorite part of the book, and what's something that you don't have out that you feel like more people should know?
uh, wow, we talked about a lot of the stuff that's in the book, the respect and the we language. Um, I think, I have a chapter in there about wisdom. I have a wisdom continuum and how you can teach wisdom to your children and how they can be inspired to make better decisions. And I describe a 360-degree thinking process where we talk about awareness, inner awareness, situational awareness, these types of things. And I teach kids to be observant and process information that's before them. So we're not making judgments. We're not we're not doing opinions. We understand the difference between fact and perspective. And it's important to me to teach our kids to take free information, incorporate it and assess it to make their best choice and their best decisions, the most informed decision. And then I taught them, on a wisdom continuum, and it's just literally a line and we plot it. And this was helpful when the kids were teenagers because they're so in a fishbowl. When they're in high school, everything is so amplified and it's so important. And they're making decisions at those moments that will affect their whole life, and they just don't get it.
Yeah.
So by plotting it on a continuum line and then just drawing it out on a napkin or wherever, here you are today, you're in high school, and here's where you're going to be in college studying, whatever it is they're interested in. That's programming. So these are the things that I did with our kids. And I'm really proud of that because I think that kind of got them out of their head and out of the fishbowl of high school and what everyone else is doing, and got them thinking big picture. We'd go to visit colleges, or in college, if they wanted to go to trade school or they didn't even want to go to college because they were starting a business or whatever they were doing, just have a purpose. What gets you out of bed in the morning? And that I'm pretty proud of that chapter. And I'm pretty proud of that message, because I think that was one of the big things that helped my kids think beyond their years and to be able to make wise decisions with information that's before them. And so, yeah, I would say that.
It's been great having you on, Sue. Is there anything else that you feel like you didn't touch on? If not, feel free to go ahead and start getting everybody like your emails or websites, socials, all that stuff.
Well, thanks, Jackson. Honestly, it was an awesome interview. I thought for a person who's not a parent, to have me on and to spend an hour talking about parenting, I'm really grateful. Thank you for that. And I don't think I've left anything unsaid. I feel like it was a very thoughtful, wonderful interview. People can either follow me on Ask Mom Parenting on Instagram or Facebook, or askmomparenting.com. They can get on my calendar and they can get 20 free minutes of mentoring with me and determine if this is a fit. I will at least guarantee one good idea from the 20 minutes so that you can at least try something new, like that day. And I've got, the book is on Amazon, it's on Apple, iTunes, it's on Barnes and Noble, Secrets to Parenting Without Giving an F. That's it. I think there's lots of ways to reach me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'm really glad we got this done after.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Jackson. I appreciate that.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you for everybody tuning in, and we'll see you next time.